All right. Good evening and welcome to the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting of Carroll County, Maryland, November 6th, 2024. Can we get, or can we establish a quorum, Gail? Go ahead.
Yes, good evening, everyone. Ms. Kirkner? Mr. Kane?
Here.
Mr. Huff? Mr. Robertson?
Here.
Mr. Swason? Mr. Lester?
Here.
Mr. Smith?
Here.
Commissioner Gordon?
Here.
Secretary Daly?
Here.
Mr. Vice Chair, please let the record reflect that we have 5 members present and we do have a quorum.
All right, thank you. Has everybody had a chance to, oh, no, I'm sorry, I'm missing that.
We'll do this.
Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Here, we should do that. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Everybody had a chance to review the agenda? Any changes or anything? Can I get a motion to approve?
So move.
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Administrator reports. Daphne.
Thank you. I have just a couple of things I wanted to bring to your attention. At the November 19th meeting, we are going to have the annual review of the Planning and Zoning Commission procedures. We'll also at that time be electing a secretary, a chair, and a vice chair, and then I think making the official approval of our 2025 meeting dates that we've already discussed. So we'll send all of the, we'll send a current copy of the procedures out to y'all with the next mailing, so you can look at those ahead of time. So just wanted to put that on your radar screen.
Okay.
The other two things, well, two things that I wanted to mention are related to some public meetings, public hearings coming up. There is a second public hearing for the Bear Branch Solar Project, which is located just north of Westminster off of Lamb Drive. That's scheduled for December 2nd at 6 p.m. at John Street Quarters, which is at 28 John Street in Westminster. So I just wanted to let you know about that. And also to, I think we've mentioned this before, but just mention again that the MPRP or PSEG, however you are familiar with it, power line project will have another public meeting on November 13th at 6 p.m., and that'll be at the Ag Center again. So just wanted to put those two things on your radar screen for calendaring, in
Okay.
case you're interested.
All
And
right.
that is all that I have.
Okay. Thank you. All right, moving right along. Item number 6, the Westminster Annexation number 80. And Hannah. Good evening. How are you, Hannah?
Hello. Okay. So as introduced, this is Westminster Annexation number 80, Maryland Home Builders. Before I get started, I believe we have some representatives for the annexation. If you have any questions following my presentation. This annexation does not require a zoning waiver, so from you all, this is just an informational briefing, and then we will relay any comments that you may have to the commissioners. So this annexation area is approximately 2.5 acres. It is surrounded by single-family residential homes. You can kind of see the lots in this map here. You can see we are also adjacent to the corporate limits of Westminster, and kind of orienting ourselves, we are in like the central part of the city of Westminster, right outside the city of Westminster, and in this gold and black boundary indicated on this map, you can see that we are inside the municipal growth area. Currently on the property, there is a vacant single-family dwelling. It's been relayed to me that the plan is when and if annexed into the city, they are wishing to subdivide this property into 4 additional lots, so there would be 5 total dwellings there. And as I said, this property is around 2.5 acres. Currently, the property is zoned R10,000 residential with the county. The requested zoning into the city is R10,000 residential. And as I stated in the beginning, there is no zoning waiver required. The designated land use of this property is suburban residential, taken from the City of Westminster's 2009 Community Comprehensive Plan. And the requested zoning of R10,000 is consistent with their land use designation. The property is in the existing service category for both water and sewer. Again, it's my understanding that the redevelopment of the property and the need for increased water capacity is the reason behind annexing this property into the city. So, as always, we send the annexation petition out for different counties to comment on. We receive no comments from any county agencies. The Bureau of Comprehensive Planning, as always, is recommending the city give public notice by posting the property prior to the date of the public hearing to notify all adjoining property owners of the public hearing. And then our next steps are to present this to the Board of Commissioners next Thursday, November 14th. And that's it for my presentation.
Any questions?
Not a question, just a comment for anybody that might be watching the meeting, just for clarification. So that's the Dr. Fitz, that's the Fitzhugh Mansion, which was later owned by Dr. Viets, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, on Ridge Road. I believe that's the property.
Yeah, it's 54 Ridge Road, I believe. Yeah.
Okay.
That was built for the intent of a hospital,
Yes.
the house that's on there. That was Dr. Fitzhugh's vision for Carroll County, that a hospital site be put up there.
I think it was like,
House.
yeah, like 1915, I think it was.
I wonder if the house is gonna stay. I'm curious, I don't know.
The plan is to keep the house.
Okay,
Awesome.
just was wondering, it's quite a historical house, it's beautiful.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
It's good to have historians on the commission here.
Just curious, when roads like this, just point of information, when roads like this are in the city, out of the city, in the city, just kind of a checkerboard thing going on, who maintains that road, Ridge Road? Is that a county road?
I'm not 100% aware.
Ridge is. There's a couple houses down from it, there's a sign that says.
Do you mind coming up to the mic?
Hello. Yeah, so it's both. It's city, and then it changes to county a couple houses before this property.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
okay. I was just curious how that works from a maintenance standpoint.
Yeah. It's like a cul-de-sac,
All good, thank you.
almost. And I was just curious, I was reading the notes about the petition. 25% of the, was it 25% of the surrounding neighborhood has to be okay with it, or was it something like that?
So to annex a property in Maryland, it's 25% of the property owners.
Okay.
So sometimes you have an annexation that's more than one property, so 25% of those property owners have to be on board, or it's 25% of the owners of the real assessed value.
Gotcha.
So since it's just the one property, just that one property owner.
It's hard to get a quarter of a person.
Right.
Gotcha. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay,
Good luck.
thank you.
Thanks, Hannah.
Any public comment? Sorry. We do have public
That you
comment.
have Kelly Miller, 73 East Main Street, Westminster, Maryland, 21157. Hannah did a great job with her presentation. You've asked, I think, some questions. If you have any additionals, we're here. This was initiated because the city does require annexation if this property were to redevelop at all. It's the city's position that anytime you need additional water capacity, if you are eligible for annexation, that they want you to annex. So that's why we're here and going through the process.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Kelly. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Item number 7, the 2023 Water and Sewer Master Plan. Have a briefing here from Andrew Gray. Hi, Andrew.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Big pointer is a little overwhelming there. Well, thank you all. Today, we are here to discuss the 2023 Carroll County Water and Sewer Master Plan Fall 2024 Amendment. As the Commission may have noticed, I wanted to present the Planning Commission, the Board of County Commissioners with an updated style of staff report. Why am I here before you today? I am here before you to amend the Water and Sewer Master Plan to keep the plan current. There are 4 systems that are being amended this cycle, along with their service area map, demands table, text for the Freedom Sykesville Water, Hampstead Sewer, and Manchester Water and Sewer. For the Carroll County Master Plan goals that the Commission is tasked with finding consistency with, first, promoting communications, working with the completion of this project and through this process, we have worked with the towns and the state in this amendment. Also protecting adequate water supplies and providing public facilities and services efficiently and cost-effectively by facilitating development in appropriate areas such as the county's designated growth areas. For Freedom, the 2018 Freedom Community Comprehensive Plan identifies applicable goals that are related to providing properties with water and sewer as follows. For Element 3, Goal 1, pursue policies that facilitate the implementation of the plan. Vision, including development in appropriate areas within density limits that respect the overall vision of the community, where water, sewer, and other infrastructure are projected to be available. And secondly, Element 3, Goal 8, efficiently and cost-effectively provide adequate public facilities and services for the Freedom Community Planning Area, including education, safety, recreational, water and sewer, and other community facilities and services to enhance and meet the changing needs of the Freedom Community Planning Area. To start out with Freedom and Sykesville's water system, is the proposed amendment will update the Freedom Sykesville water map and text by moving 4 single-family dwelling units from the existing water service, W1, to the long-range future water service area, W6, and subtracting 1,000 gallons per day of residential demand from the existing priority and future categories. Changes to Table 15 are highlighted here and also in the county staff report provided. For the town of Hampstead sewer system, this amendment will update the Hampstead sewer map and text by moving property from future S5 to priority S3 and add 5,554 gallons per day of other demand to the priority sewer category. The changes to Table 32 in the Carroll County Master Plan are highlighted here and also in the county staff report. For the town of Manchester water and sewer system, for Manchester Water, is to move 5 single-family dwelling units from long-range future W6 to existing W1 and add 1,250 gallons per day of residential demand to future, priority, and existing. Second is to move property from priority W3 to existing W1. Now, with this, just to note, no demand changes are necessary because according to the Town of Manchester staff, these properties have been connected to public water for at least 10 years and have then thus would have been, this calculation for water would have been taken care of in the last triennial update. Also, several map edits that are specified here and in your staff reports were made. And continuing on with this slide as well. Map edits for water. For Manchester sewer amendments, move 0.438 acres of property from existing S1 to future S5 and subtract 307 gallons per day of other demand from existing and priority. Move 1 single-family dwelling unit from no plan service to existing S1 and add 250 gallons per day of residential demand to future, priority, and existing. Move 9 single-family dwelling units from no plan service to long-range S6 and move property from priority S3 to existing S1. To note, just as with the water, these properties have been connected to the system for at least 10 years, and thus no changes in demand are being asked for since this has already been on the system. And just geographically, from the last one for the water demand that had the same sort of situation, these are the same properties. There's 3 properties with sewer, I believe, and 2 for water, and they're all located roughly in the same location at the corner of Maple Grove, actually more precisely between Maple Grove Road and Charmel Avenue along Hanover Pike, Maryland Route 30. Also, move 1 single-family dwelling unit from existing S1 to future S5 and subtract 250 gallons per day of residential demand from existing and priority. Move 1 single-family dwelling unit from future S5 to existing S1 and add 250 gallons per day of residential demand to priority and existing. Move 8 single-family dwelling units from existing S1 to priority S3 and subtract 2,000 gallons of residential demand from existing. Move 11 single-family dwelling units from existing S1 to future S5 and subtract 2,750 gallons per day of residential demand from existing and priority. Move 17 single-family detached dwelling units from future S5 to priority S3 and add 4,250 gallons per day of residential demand to priority. Also move 1 single-family detached dwelling unit from existing S1 to priority S3 and subtract 250 gallons per day of residential demand from existing. And there are several other map edits, just like for water, that are specified here and in your staff report, but I won't, they're map edits, so I won't, I don't want to take your valuable time to go through those, but if you would like clarification, I'm here to answer any questions. These 2 maps are what is proposed for the Manchester water and sewer area. And I understand that these changes are hard to see, but in the essence of your valuable time, I have included these for information purposes. Additionally, for the town of Manchester, changes to Table 15 and 32 are highlighted here and also in the county staff report. Also, Manchester Plan water text changes are highlighted here and in the county staff report. Same with the sewer text changes for the town of Manchester. So where are we now? This is a briefing, so you have time to review before making, hopefully, a consistency finding at your November 19th meeting. After the commission makes a recommendation on master plan consistency, the amendment will then go before the Carroll County Board of County Commissioners for a briefing and public hearing. If the Board of County Commissioners approves, the adopted amendment will be forwarded to the Maryland Department of the Environment for final review and approval. For recommendations, so for Freedom Sykesville service area, Carroll County Planning staff recommends the Carroll County Planning and Zoning Commission certify the request to amend the existing water service area on map 12, which is the Freedom Water Service Area, as described above, removing 1,000 gallons per day to the demand calculations in Table 15, as described above, is consistent with the 2018 Freedom Community Comprehensive Plan and the 2014 Carroll County Master Plan as amended in 2019. For Hampstead, county staff recommends the Carroll County Planning and Zoning Commission certify the request to amend the priority sewer service area on map 22 of the master plan, which is the Hampstead sewer service area, as described above, adding 5,554 gallons per day to the demand calculations in Table 32, as described above, is consistent with the 2014 Carroll County Master Plan as amended in 2019. And lastly, for the town of Manchester, county planning staff recommends the Carroll County Planning and Zoning Commission certify the following requests are consistent with the 2014 Carroll County Master Plan as amended in 2019. Number one, amend the existing water service area on map 14, which is the Manchester Water Service Area, as described, adding 1,250 gallons per day to the demand calculations in Table 15, as described above, amending the priority water service area on map 14, adding 1,250 gallons per day to the demand calculations in Table 15, as described above, also amending the future water service area map on map 14 by adding 1,250 gallons per day to the demand calculations in Table 15, amending the existing sewer service area on map 23, which is the Manchester service area, sewer service area map, as described above, removing 5,000 gallons per day to the demand calculations in Table 32, amending the priority service area map amending the priority sewer service area on map 23, as described, adding 1,500 gallons per day to the demand calculations in Table 32, amending the future service area on map 23, as described above, adding 250 gallons to the demand calculations in Table 32, and lastly, make text changes to the water and sewer text as exhibited in Attachment 1. Mr. Chair, if you have any questions, please let me know.
Any questions?
I hate to say it, I do.
Yeah, I have a couple too.
All right, so the property in Freedom has four pieces of four parcels. Three have well access to well water, and one has no reasonable access to water, according to, it says, per the Bureau of Utilities, 3 of the properties have existing wells and 1 property has no reasonable way to connect to water. So there's going to be a property that has no well water and no reasonable way to connect to water, and it's surrounded by water. Am I the only one who's like scratching his head over why we're doing that to that property? I mean, is there a way for us to fix that for that owner?
When I spoke with, because this was one of my questions as well, right when I saw this, and when I spoke to the Bureau of Utilities, I asked them about, is there any way to connect with existing easements? And due to the fact that I believe that there's a stipulation that a water line must be so far from a sewer line. And from what I can remember from having this conversation several months ago, that threshold was not met. And from other properties, a line coming from Liberty Road sounded like it would just not be economically feasible.
So that is an existing home, or just a property,
Just a piece
a
of,
lot?
that's a vacant lot?
Um,
A lot with no value, if that's the case.
Yeah.
I apologize. What I'll do is, I'll go back and I'll double check that, and I can mention that, bring that information to you all at the next meeting.
Yeah.
Again, I'm not, no axe to grind. You're kicking it. Don't want to slow it down. You know, let's rock and roll. At the same time, it was just one of those things like, wow, I mean, we're, you know, not intentionally, we're moving water capacity. I wonder why we're doing that. And then wait, there's a piece of property here that has no water. I mean, these guys are gonna, you know, what kind of value do we create? Are we creating negative value for somebody by doing this? So I don't know, but you do, so help us understand. So that's all I'm asking. And I won't be here on the 19th, so
We'll take up your.
you're the man, Mr. Kane. No, it's no cost. I just, you know.
Yeah. I mean, the value, I guess, maybe to a neighbor who wants to expand their property and have
Yeah,
a nice, a
assemblage.
bigger lot or
Yeah,
something.
assemble it. Hey, move on.
So if that lot, to follow up on that, so if the owner of that lot would request water there, there's no way of getting it to that lot? Is that what we're saying here?
From what I understand from the Bureau of Utilities, that is correct.
Okay,
Just be really expensive if he did it.
yeah.
Yeah.
So whatever. Yeah, I don't, poor guy.
So,
And a lot of these requests, are they generated by the citizens who request water and sewer, or is that what a lot of this is about? I mean, you need to bring me up to speed, because this is the first time I've seen these reports, and I read through them, and I'm a little lost.
Absolutely, not a problem, Commissioner Robinson. So for instance, for the Freedom Sykesville area, this request was brought to us by Bureau of Utilities, and I believe it was just by the Bureau of Utilities. I think, let me get back to you with some more information. I don't want to speculate, but I think there may have been passed through from the property owner, but I will confirm that and get back to you.
It was just an informational request on my part. I just wanted to understand how some of this is work, where you take water from one area and generate water to the other areas. And, you know, what did it? Was it citizens who got together and requested this, or is that part of the entire process?
Well, and for Hampstead, this property that's in question is located between, it was the North Carroll Physical Therapy and, for all intensive purposes, the Greenmount Station area there, that field. And that was initiated by the town because the property is going to be, it's going to be a commercial property. Per the town manager, that will be a Tractor Supply Company proposed to be. And then for Manchester, the Manchester edits, the town was, with going through and looking at the map with the town, we saw some things that were not, that did not represent what was actually there. So the entire Manchester, except for one on Charmel Road, right behind the crematorium at, the crematorium at the funeral home, on the north side of Charmel, all that was just a cleanup to make what is actually existing.
Accuracy.
Accuracy, exactly. Thank you, yes.
Good deal. Yeah, that's all good.
Okay.
I like accuracy. Yeah.
And we worked hand in hand with the town to make sure that that map was correct.
Okay.
and a lot of the gallons per day adjustments that's, some of these have been tapped into the system for 10 years or
Yeah,
more, you're
that's-
saying? So that's based off of historical usage.
Right, especially, well, for the ones that I know have been into that you mentioned, tapped into the system, was the properties right there. I think it's funeral home, Premier Dental, and a utility building right there at Hanover Pike and Maple Grove Road.
Okay.
Any other questions? All right. I think we're good. Thank you, Andrew.
Thank you.
See you on the 19th, it sounds like.
Sir?
If I could just add one thing. I know it was in your presentation, I didn't hear you mention it, but both the town of Manchester and the town of Hampstead's Planning and Zoning Commissions did certify these amendments as consistent with their comprehensive plans.
good.
So
That's
that's, since these are well, Freedom is our system, Freedom Sewer is also our system, but the Manchester Water and Sewer is their system, so, yeah.
Thank you. I did not want to leave that out, so thank you.
So good.
Good to know.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you. All right. Any public comment regarding the water and sewer master plan updates? All right, moving right along. Item number 8, presentation on Carroll County Housing Study Draft. Quite a draft.
So while folks are getting settled here, I just want to give a brief introduction. As you know, the county contracted with Mosaic to provide consulting services on the development of a housing study, primarily so that we can use some of that information as we begin to look at housing as part of the county master plan. So tonight you're going to hear from Jeremy Gray, who's with Mosaic, and I'll let him introduce himself in just a minute. Also at the table is Tiffany Fawcett, who's with our Bureau of Comprehensive Planning, and she has been doing an excellent job as project manager over the last, 6 or 8 months, maybe. I can't remember when exactly we officially kicked off, but kind of helping to shepherd this through a whole lot of public interaction, public comments, surveys. Tiffany was out, you probably saw her at one of the many events that she was out with and without Jeremy, helping to gather input. So I'm going to turn it over to Jeremy, and he's going to walk you through his presentation and hopefully get some feedback from you all that could help in the finalization of the report, which we expect will be presented to the Board of County Commissioners then in mid-December.
Okay.
Well, good evening, everyone. Thank you for having me tonight. My name is Jeremy Gray. I'm one of the principals with Mosaic Community Planning. We are a planning firm based in Atlanta. We work with communities around the country, particularly on housing planning and community development planning are the areas that we work in most often. And as Daphne mentioned, we've been working with the comprehensive planning staff here at Carroll County for some number of months on this housing study. And I'm happy to, as we're getting close to the finish line, happy to share with you some findings from our report, just to give you a glimpse of some of the things that we have been looking at. And then also did want to share with you preliminarily our recommendations. We are continuing to refine those. We have a workshop, in fact, tomorrow with stakeholders through the community to further work on the recommendations, make sure that when the report is final, when that goes to the county, that they are things that people here in Carroll County have reviewed, believe will work. And so that's going to be important. So we're still working on those, but did want to take this opportunity to share with you where we are. Okay, so just briefly the purpose of this housing study. The main thing really is that, of course, the county has embarked on its update to the county master plan. Going into that, the county did its economic development and land use study last year to kind of gather and feed information on economic development into that comprehensive, into that master plan. This is sort of the same thing with housing, knowing that housing is an important issue, an area that you want to get right as you're doing this new master plan, making sure that you have the best information that is going to go into that effort. There also is a set of new state planning requirements that apply in Maryland around affirmatively furthering fair housing. And so this, the way that we've constructed our effort and our report here will meet those requirements so that you can demonstrate to the state that you are compliant with the affirmatively furthering fair housing requirements. Again here, so the intended outcome. What we want to be able to do is provide recommendations for your decision-making regarding land use, provide good data that you can take into your planning efforts, and then some of these things too about obtaining and maintaining a safe living environment for people of all different backgrounds, you know, adults and families, young families, families with children, youth, populations with disabilities, lots of different subpopulations that live within Carroll County and have unique housing needs, and we want to make sure that those are represented in our work. So the 4 phases of our project here, you see we are at the tail end, presentation and approval. We're not quite at that approval stage, but we are beginning to make some presentations and make this information available to you all and to also stakeholders. Daphne mentioned that we had done a good bit of public engagement and outreach around this housing study, and I do want to highlight some of that effort. We had a survey. It was available online and in hard copy. It was available in English and in Spanish. We had well over 1,400 responses to that survey. In a county the size of Carroll, that's a really good response rate. It gives us a lot of good information to work with. Throughout the summer, we popped up at 11 different community events, lots of festivals, firemen's carnivals, farmers markets, art and wine strolls, those sorts of activities. We set up a tent, put out our table, talked with residents, really wanting to make this an effort where we were coming to where the people were to engage with people rather than throw open the doors to your building here on a Thursday night and invite people to come and probably not see many people. We had 330 people, at least, that we tallied, that came to our table, interacted with us, spoke with us. We had a dot voting exercise on an easel. You see that in the picture there. But in one way or another, over 300 people visited us and interacted. 4 different focus groups that we held. One focused on senior housing needs, one on the housing needs of people with disabilities. One of those was a focus group made up of real estate agents, and the 4th one was the Circle of Caring, so people engaged in the nonprofit service delivery sorts of sectors. We brought them together to hear from them as well. Stakeholder interviews, as needed, our team set up interviews and spoke with a range of stakeholders. And the project web page, it was on the county's own site, but we had a page dedicated to this housing study, so it made it a convenient way to refer people to find more information and to get involved. Okay, so dipping a little bit here into some of the data, and really it's when you see the whole thing, it's almost a 200-page report, and so I'm going to just sample a few things for you here as highlights. Beginning with these demographic trends. So Carroll County's population is growing, has grown about 15% since 2000. Over that time, you can see that the population of Carroll County has also become more diverse. So whereas in 2000, the white population made up 95% of the county, it was 86.8% in 2022. And you see some of those other non-white groups, Black, Hispanic, for example, have grown considerably. Still small shares of the population, but those are significant amounts of growth. With that increased diversity, you also have the number of people who live in Carroll County who are foreign born has increased, about doubled. The number of limited English proficient residents in Carroll County has increased by about 50% over that time period. The share of
Sorry,
house...
don't mean to say that one more time. The number of English.
People with limited English proficiency.
Thank you. Okay, I want to make sure I heard that right. Thank you.
That's right. And the share of households with children at the same time has decreased. That percentage has dropped about 10 percentage points since 2000. And so you do have this growth, but you're seeing fewer children and families with children among that. So with this growth, where will these residents live? We're projecting here some of the housing needs into the future toward a goal date of 2040. So you see there some of our figures in fine print at the bottom, how we arrived at them, or some of the assumptions that we made to arrive at them. But the bottom line is a gap of 3,877 housing units that you would need, assuming kind of steady growth among the population, that the household size remains about the same over that period of time, and that your vacancy rate, little under 4%, that's a pretty tight housing market. So we again figured that that would remain the case too. That's 194 housing units per year. And I will say between 2019 and 2023, the county was permitting about 400 units per year. About 262 of those are single-family detached. So by and large, those are single-family homes. One thing that I would point out about this 3,800 housing unit number, about 43% of those will need to be affordable at a level of 80% of the area median income or below. And so Carroll County, you do have housing units that are being constructed that would keep pace with this need. But I think the affordability component is going to quickly be outstripped as that growth happens. So I mentioned the majority of those new housing units that are being permitted are single-family detached. The county's current housing stock is 77% single-family homes. Not a surprise, I'm sure, to any of you who live here. But those other types of housing that, middle housing or more dense housing are very small shares of the housing stock currently. And you see that compared with the Baltimore MSA. You can see Carroll County is quite different in terms of its composition. So I mentioned that survey that we conducted. This is one of the survey questions that we asked. Which of the following housing types does Carroll County need more of? I'm not sure how well you can read that chart from where you're sitting, but I'll share a few things. Much more is needed is the green bar on those charts. Senior housing was the largest among those. 29% of our respondents said that much more senior housing is needed. 28% said that much more housing is needed in the small home, cottage style, townhome type housing. And 24% said that the county needs much more workforce apartments. You can compare that to the red. Those bars are for no more housing is needed of this type. 61% of our respondents said that the county does not need any more luxury apartments. 58% said the county does not need any more large single-family homes. And 54% said no more large apartment complexes. So you do have this, I think it's interesting, there is this softness, I think, around the need for more and different housing types, something besides single-family detached housing. There is an appetite for that among the survey respondents that we talked with. Not going so far as, large multi-story apartment complexes maybe, but what is that in between those small apartment buildings or cottage-style developments, townhomes, things of that sort.
So Jeremy, and it's okay if we.
Certainly.
I love this kind of information. Workforce apartments. Define that for us. How does that relate to, just a plain old apartment? I mean, I have something in my head and my heart, but how do you define that?
That's a great question. We did define it in our survey because I think Daphne and Tiffany helped us anticipate that might be a question people would ask. And off the top of my head, I can't recall the specific definition that we used, but we did define it as housing that would be appropriate for someone, on a wage in the workforce, I think would be the gist of it. But I would have to get back to you on the actual term that we used.
Is this also based on need for people who work in Carroll County or people who just commute to Carroll County or out of Carroll County who just want to live here?
That's a great.
How do you determine that part of it?
Yeah, so that's a very good question. And I didn't plan to touch on any of it tonight, but there is a good section in our report on kind of workforce trends, those commuting patterns. Carroll County, of course, there are a lot of people who are engaged in the workforce who live in Carroll County but work elsewhere. Lots of people commute into Carroll County for work as well. Our survey was targeted primarily to people who are residents of Carroll County. And so not all of them were, but by the vast majority of our survey respondents are Carroll County residents.
And you did a demographic based on race and ethnicity, and did you also do a demographic based on income levels?
Yes. Related to survey data or?
Survey
Yes.
data.
We did.
In other words, I guess what I'm getting at, maybe I should define that for you, that's a broad question. So when you had your booth set up, was there anything in any of these questions that dealt with salary or income levels? I just would be curious to know.
Yes, we did ask that question on the survey. And so any of the responses we could sort by that question. People with incomes under $50,000 said X or Y. I don't have those figures with me, but that's possible based on the way we built the survey. Yeah, we can look into that.
Trying to get a handle on how you viewed this from a higher level down.
That's
drilled into it.
Yeah, so that was important to us. Age was a question on there too. I think there are some differences between what older people in the county think or want in terms of housing and what younger people in the county think in terms of housing. We saw some.
I think one of my
differences
biggest
there.
questions in all this is and maybe I'm getting off the track here, excuse me if I am, but a lot of the things that we've been reviewing the last couple months, year I guess, is age-restricted housing. And every time I see this, I keep wondering, are these for age-restricted people who are moving into the county or people who are aging out within the county that are looking for a smaller way of living, I guess you'd say?
Sure.
So if that's the case, then is there a demographic of how many houses may or may not be freed up for then the next generation where we don't have to be building houses, but maybe aid people to get into existing homes that are around?
And Ralph, it's probably yes to both, right? Because
Well,
they're
it could- yeah, and it probably
you and me
is.
moving out of our homes into one of
Yeah.
those, and then, somebody moving into the area who wants to just be close to their grandchildren who have moved here. So it's probably a little bit of both.
And to prolong this conversation, I see you had a demographic or a chart up there about the Columbia and Baltimore area. And I keep thinking, then are we trying to study to put houses together for people who maybe live in Columbia that just don't want to live there anymore and come to Carroll County in an age-restricted community. So, I mean, I'm one to protect my own. So that would be my first priority. What do we do for the people that live here, work here, and commune here, whatever?
Well, my thought
I
on
know
that.
we can't put gates
Yeah.
on, on 140.
And Ralph, the other part of that is do we aspire to be like Towson,
Well,
Columbia? I mean, what do we want to be when we grow up, right? Do we want to be like that, or do we want to be like Hereford? Or what do we want to be when we grow up?
yeah,
So
I know what I don't want to see. I'm not sure what I do want to see.
Yeah.
That's kind of where we're
That's,
at with
and
this-
that's one of the
this
challenges.
next
in
10 years.
All of the housing and the affordability, pressure, not pressure, but affordability mandate. I mean, that's not too strong a word, but that's an issue with the rural complex. With rural comes complexity to solve those solutions.
Because when we look at the, in 24, in your brochure here, it refers to what the state is thinking we should be looking at,
Right.
but we don't have any answers from the state. So the state puts together, what are you gonna do about it? And if you don't do this, I mean, they gotta come up and smack our hands? I mean,
That was one of my questions.
Yeah,
Does the Public Service Commission have any
yeah.
weigh in on this stuff?
Yeah,
as we
and
get
so
down the road?
you got quite a job on your hands,
Yeah.
and you're attacking in a very good way here, where you have a chart that kind of gets a feel
Yeah.
of the people that you're looking at and a wide range of demographic here, where you have, the traditional Carroll County and whatever that may be, and then the newer Carroll County, and then the anticipatory Carroll County, and that, it makes for some good talking points. It really does.
No question.
So I'll get off my soapbox, but I'm just trying to get a feel of how you attack these problems so that you can sit here and give us a good feel of what's going on. And it's a tough job. I like what I see so far.
Well, and I think that a lot of what you're saying is underscoring things that we heard when we were talking with residents too. I know in that senior focus group, I was involved in that one, and there were people, seniors who said, we would love to downsize, but we cannot because there are not options for us. And so
Right.
it freezes your current housing inventory.
Right.
If they could, then that frees up maybe a starter home for a young family. So just to kind of grease that and get some of that happening.
And
But-
bear with me, because I guess I'm the senior one on this. So I'm looking at it maybe from a little different perspective, which is maybe what you want. But, I just had recently, a couple that we were very good friends of that lived here in Carroll County all their lives. And they went to a senior community in Greencastle. And Carroll County lost something there because, they were good contributors to the county.
Sure.
That was their choice, I understand that. They looked long and hard to find a place where, as they were downsizing and selling their farm and moving on. And I just felt like that was quite a loss to the county because they had contributed so much.
And Jeremy, you early on in your presentation, you said something, and I think it's not a quiz, I'm not trying to trip you up or anything. I just want to understand. So the state is asking us to affirm that we're doing some things to address affordability. Is that what I heard?
Yes, more or less. I think, so it goes beyond affordability. So
Okay.
that's part of it, but fair housing. So
Fair housing. Thank you.
making sure that everyone has equal access to housing without regard for their race, sex, ethnicity, et
Yeah, yeah.
cetera.
Good.
Over the years, there's been so many attempts at all this with disastrous results in a lot of respects, and sometimes they work. So we're gonna try to figure out a way to make it work.
Yes, right. It is an affirmative sort of commitment. So that's what the requirement is that you are taking actions in an affirmative way to make the housing stock more fair for the residents who live here.
Okay?
Okay, so let's come back to that at the end. Yes,
If I
sir.
could real quick, the one question I kind of have out of curiosity, and I don't expect you to be able to answer this evening. So we're looking at this chart, and there, you know, we have, let me see here, like 34% says no more workforce housing is needed. I'd love to see that drilled down a little more to know, is there a way to break down who those respondents are? Because, you know, when we're looking at people saying, oh, we don't want more apartments, well, are those people that own potentially, you know, large single-family homes? I mean, what is the, you know, what's the demographic on those? Because I got to wonder if there isn't potentially, and we all have it, whether we like it or not, we have biases in life.
We do?
And, you know, just if we're looking at a large, diverse portfolio of housing, you know, if we just look at this as a snapshot, is this really all the information we need, or do we need to know
Understand.
what group and understand more of who said what in those specific answers?
Right.
Because, you know, obviously, if you have a young person that can't afford a home, they're going to want to see, you know, potentially maybe workforce housing or access to mixed-use apartments, whatever, whereas somebody that might have been here longer and be more established
Right.
may say, we don't want that here.
Right.
For various reasons.
Yeah.
So the way we collected the data would allow us to do that. We could sort it by homeowners versus renters. We could see how, you know, that is different, or sort it by income, age, those sorts of factors we
Okay.
could use.
I'd be kind of curious just to see, not to make too much work, but if we could kind of break it down in a variety of categories just to get a feel, because I think one versus the other may not give us enough to really go by. I'd be really curious, given what we're looking at, housing supply and what the general attitude's been on housing the last couple of years.
Okay.
If I could just jump in really quickly, just to answer a couple of questions I think are still out there. The Baltimore Columbia MSA, which stands for Metropolitan Statistical Area, is the area
Part of it,
that
whether we like
Carroll
it or
County
not.
is part
Yeah,
of.
sure.
So I think that's kind of I think there was a question about, you know, is that what we're aspiring to? And I think for just reporting purposes, that's why that's there. It's not a point of comparison. I also just wanted to mention that pretty soon we'll be presenting some data related to migration patterns. So, Mr. Robertson, I think you were asking about, you know, who's moving into age restricted. We might not have that data, but we will be able to give you a sense of where people are coming from who are moving into the county, and then likewise where people are going to who are leaving the county. So stay tuned. Thanks. Go ahead.
Okay. All right, I've got a few slides here on housing costs, first starting with home values. So July 2024, the average home value in Carroll County was almost $471,000. It's a 50% increase over the same time, 2015. So over the last 9 years, that amount has increased by 50%. Obviously, in 2020, 2021, there was a very noticeable jump in the housing values. Of course, during the pandemic, that was sort of a fairly universal trend, not just related to Carroll County, but home prices did increase during that time. Sykesville is represented, some of the municipalities are represented separately on here, who we had data for. Sykesville values trend well above those of the county. Tawnytown, Hampstead, examples of some that trend on the more lower home values, more affordable. Looking at the same thing with rent, you still see in that 2020 to 2021 timeframe that increase that happened in the rental market as well. In 2024, typical rent in Carroll County was $1,761, about $1,900 in the wider MSA. And so Carroll County rents are a little lower than they are outside in the metropolitan statistical area. Then when we look at this rent affordability diagram here, what we're looking at is what it actually takes to afford housing of a certain number of bedrooms, given the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development sets fair market rents. These aren't necessarily actual rents that are charged, but they determine, based on market data, this is what a fair market rent would be in this market area. Even one-bedrooms are unaffordable to renters at the average renter wage, which in Carroll County is $25.40 an hour. The average renter is earning a wage of about $25 an hour. At minimum wage, and in Maryland that's $15 an hour, those affordability challenges are even more increased. If you look at, for example, a two-bedroom apartment, if you kind of follow that arrow, fair market rent would be $1,900. It would take 100 hours of work a week at minimum wage of $15 an hour to afford a two-bedroom apartment without being what we call cost burdened. Cost burden means you're spending more than 30% of your income on your housing costs. Plenty of people do. Some people spend 30, 40, 50, more than that percent of their income on housing costs. But ideally, when we talk about affordability, our housing is affordable if it's 30% or less of our income is the standard that is generally used there. Okay, so a couple of maps here related to opportunity. This does come from those state affirmatively furthering fair housing requirements. We look at where certain opportunity features lie within the county, who has access to those by virtue of where they live. This first map is showing jobs by census tract, and so you can see the lighter the shading, the more jobs. So right there around Westminster, you're seeing a kind of a job center. And then as you extend north of Westminster, and then really to the northeast and northwest as well, Tawnytown, Manchester, not so many jobs. And this is, well, I guess also if you leave Carroll County, in Baltimore County, you see there to the southeast, plenty of jobs available there. This is, of course, important because proximity to your job is a big part of your housing choice, your housing decision, where you are able and choose to live. And so one of the things that connects people to their jobs is transportation. And so this map links housing plus transportation costs as a percentage of income. So housing and transportation costs are combined to more than 75% of the income of an 80%, of a household that's 80% of the median in Mount Airy and Sykesville and Finksburg. Those are those dark red areas that you see. So that's 75, even more, up to 83% of the income of an 80% AMI family would be spent on their housing plus transportation costs. Obviously, you know, being able to, and we'll talk about this a little bit in the recommendations, but being able to live somewhere that's cheaper helps only if the transportation is available there too. But if you're further from transportation access, or you have to own a car if you're going to live there, or you're putting a lot of miles on your car to get back and forth, it may not be as affordable as it had seemed. Okay, so I'm going to turn here into some discussion of the housing needs and strategy recommendations that we have drafted. And I'll just say it again, these are preliminary. We're continuing to work on and refine these. If you have feedback for us on these, we would love it. We'll meet with a group of stakeholders tomorrow to have this conversation, or a similar conversation as well. So for these slides, the top of the slide is mentioning a housing need that we determined based on the data. And then the text of the slide is outlining some of the strategies that we would propose that could address that housing need. So the need for an increased variety of housing types. One of the strategies that we have there is really a PR campaign, for lack of a better word. And this is working a long game. This is not going to net benefits in the near term maybe, but helping to build a conversation within the county about why this is important, why these different varieties of housing needs are important, why they're needed, maybe testimonials, maybe a speakers bureau, people who can, go to a Kiwanis Club and talk about it, who have some background in this. So kind of building that out, what would that look like? So another reference here to some state law, but Maryland's Housing Expansion and Affordability Act. It goes into effect next year. Kind of being proactive about incorporating that into the city or the county's planning and codes. The main thing here I think that could be useful, nonprofit-owned housing development could get certain benefits, maybe density bonuses, maybe some exemptions from zoning requirements that they might think were too costly or it costs too much to incorporate those, maybe related to materials or parking requirements, things of that sort. So that's a state law, something that the county is going to have to work with, but the intent is to open up housing opportunities, increase housing development throughout Maryland. So getting ahead of that and finding ways to incorporate that in a way that makes sense for Carroll County. And then really fostering relationships with builders, realtors, lenders, people who work in the housing industry, so that those connections between people can be identified, establishing those partnerships. Just in the course of the work that we've done, there have been some of these kind of pieces that we get, a housing developer that we talk to who has a great project in mind, and it could really take off if it had X, Y, and Z, and oh, well, we're talking with the lender next, and maybe she has an idea too. So kind of fostering conversations between these people, really building a better network of housing industry professionals in Carroll County that know each other and are working together. Number 2, increased access to home ownership and rental units for protected classes. So protected classes, that's referring to the Federal Fair Housing Act, which protects people based on those characteristics that I mentioned. So race, ethnicity, sex, religion, disability status, family status, et cetera. In looking at some of the rates of home ownership, for example, and some other factors, we see that there are disparities by race or ethnicity related to homeownership, reasons for mortgage denials and things of that sort. So stabilizing the path to homeownership, homebuyer readiness classes, pre-application assistance. There are organizations, nonprofits, quasi-public organizations that do this work already. They may not be doing it in Carroll County, and so recruiting them to come and offer a class, maybe here in Westminster, periodically, things of that sort, to provide better pathways to homeownership for people who would be looking to go that direction. To the extent the county might be willing to put its own funding into that or general funds into that, you can target that in those cases to support maybe workforce development or economic development initiatives. If you're trying to recruit teachers or firefighters to the county, you could attach down payment assistance funding to people who are in those sorts of professions. Technical assistance to develop small-scale residential projects, things where maybe there's not a lot of institutional knowledge around how to build or get a duplex permitted just because it doesn't happen very often here. Building staff capacity to be resources to those housing industry leaders who might be able to do that. Maybe also identifying other experts. The Regional Planning Commission could be a good source as well, but identifying those and bringing them to bear on the situation. Developing a housing trust fund. I've seen this done with, kind of taking a little off the top of deed filing fees or transfer taxes, identifying grant money, so it's not your own. Again, you could put general funds into it, not you, but I guess the Board of County Commissioners could, to support housing affordability, and that could be used as gap financing for affordable projects, things of that sort. And conducting outreach to local lenders, we've talked about that a little bit already, disparities in homeownership and denial rates for Black and Hispanic residents in the county. Number 3 of 6, there's 6 of these, just to give you an idea of where we are. Reducing disparities in housing access. Section 202 is a federal funding program that supports housing for the elderly. Section 811 supports housing for people with disabilities. There are no Section 202 funded units in Carroll County currently. There are some Section 811 units, but not very many. They're all located kind of clustered together, I think down in the southern. So with number 4, we're kind of getting back to the transportation issue. We talked about this a little bit related to those maps. Just the nature of land use in Carroll County, you don't have the density to support fixed route bus or transit systems much beyond maybe what you're already doing. But what are some of the small scale kind of filling in the gaps that can be done? Van pools, maybe just scheduled around shift change schedules at medical facilities or things of that nature. Maybe a connection to Baltimore Link, just a way to get people from Carroll County tied into a larger transportation network. Some small investments maybe that you could make there that could, by connecting with existing programs and systems, you could really get some benefit from. To the extent that the county would be investing in or supporting encouraging development of workforce housing, making sure that that happens in areas that do have access to transit, that it is on a bus route so that people can use that to get around. Supporting the municipalities in implementing zoning changes that would allow for kind of live-work communities, mixed-use development where the communities themselves are walkable. You might not be able to walk from that community to something else in town, but the more walkability we can get, and that is most likely to happen in the municipalities, that helps here too. Investing in and improving connectivity of sidewalks and bicycle infrastructure. A lot of times bicycle infrastructure is for recreational use, but a trail or a path or a bike lane, between, Manchester or Sykesville or something like that, could actually be transportation infrastructure. Number 5, expanding the areas served by local infrastructure. So obviously before my presentation, there was one about water and sewer, and that comes up repeatedly in the conversations that we've had throughout the county related to housing. It's certainly a limitation on where and how much and how dense housing can be developed. Keeping a tab on what those infrastructure needs are and developing with that in mind is going to be important. So making sure that there's good alignment between your next master plan, the municipality's master plans, making sure that there are housing goals that account for needed population growth, but also that those are supported by the necessary water and sewer that they will need too. That goes for looking at business expansion plans. We have a industry that's wanting to locate in Carroll County. They'll talk about the jobs that they're bringing. I think really extending that conversation, how many housing units does that need, and can we support those? How can we support those housing units that are going to be needed as well? Capital improvement plans is something that the county has, but these long-term plans for infrastructure, maybe working with your municipalities around that as well, making sure that they are thinking about that. Obviously, I know that they are around water and sewer because we just had a presentation about that, but making sure that there continues to be alignment between what the county is doing and what the cities are doing, so that we're all on the same page. TIFs, which is a tax increment financing, is a tool that some communities are using to fund economic development, community development, with increments in tax funding. So it's an investment tool that you would have related to property taxes. The county would receive the same amount of property taxes on this designated area for some set number of years, but the incremental increase in property taxes as a result of investment in that zone would be retained within that area and goes to support infrastructure that can be developed there. And finally, this one is related more to all of the help, supports, accesses to housing and housing stability. So this is not a hard housing goal, but this gets at the supportive things that go around housing and help people access it and maintain housing and become stable in their housing. So working with, the Circle of Caring, for example, organizations that are community-based and working on some of these issues, that's a really great resource that Carroll County already has. Continuing to partner with organizations like that to make sure that, as maybe lower income or lower wage workers are accessing housing, that there are supports there so that they stay there and they're not getting evicted the next week. Identifying and pursuing opportunities to fund service programs. There are grant funds. The Community Development Block Grant is one of those. There may be state funds under that program that the county could access. And related to homelessness, a housing first approach gets people into housing while you work on the reasons that they were homeless. And so that is something that we recommend. That's kind of has become the most common way, I think, of addressing homelessness in communities. And we do know that homelessness is an issue in Carroll County. You do have a homeless shelter already, but continuing to understand what that need is and make sure that that is a need that is being addressed. So with that, that is what I wanted to share with you, but I'm happy to answer additional questions or hear feedback, or if there's anything in those strategies or recommendations that you'd like us to reconsider or improve on, I'm happy to hear that too.
Thank you, Jeremy. Any questions from folks? So when we were talking a little bit earlier about the MSA and reading through the report, there's reference to affordability, those things that, is the area's media income and things like that. So is the area defined as the MSA, or in that report, is it just Carroll County?
I will have to look at, probably it's the MSA. In some jurisdictions, it might be determined at the county level. I doubt that it is for Carroll. It's probably the MSA's median income.
Okay. Good stuff. Lot to think about. A lot to digest and some good recommendations and thought-provoking recommendations and how we incorporate this into the 10-year master plan, because there's a lot of changes circling about.
Yeah, so just on that note, what our hope is that once the study is finalized and accepted by the Board of County Commissioners, we have an opportunity to convene sort of like a working group or something like that that would take the study and really do a deep dive into it and really dig into all of the different recommendations that are being made, and then make a recommendation to you all as to how that might play into the master plan, what their kind of main ideas or even further recommendations might be to take all of the good information and work that came out of the housing study and then sort of translate that into action items that could be incorporated into the master plan. So definitely the study is really the kind of the springboard for those further conversations. It's not a cut and paste kind of thing, but gives us, it's the primary tool that we can begin those discussions.
Are the municipalities, are they involved? Have they been, are they in the loop with the housing study? Have they seen it, or?
I know they were part of the initial conversations. I don't know what we've done so far to reach out to them as follow-up.
Yeah, that's right. So there were representatives from each of the municipalities that were invited to interview with our team. Some of them did, not all of them did. The stakeholder meeting that we'll have tomorrow, I know that there are some representatives from some of your.
That was my next question. Who are the stakeholders in the meeting?
Yeah, so that would include a lot of housing industry professionals. There's a lot of real estate agents in that group. There are nonprofit professionals, people who, run nonprofit organizations. There are some housing developers. There are representatives of the cities and the towns as well. Those are a few I can think of off the top of my head.
Clark Schaefer going to be there? He's an attorney that, like historians we have here on the commission, he's a historian among the attorney group in Carroll County, but knows a lot of stuff anyway.
No Sunday surrogate.
We always kid about him.
I would like to say that with the municipalities, we worked collaboratively with them for all those outreach events that we had. They worked with us to set up the events. Some of them gave us the tables and the time and even funded the event for
Great.
us to be able to be there, so.
Awesome. Good. Okay.
So I know you all don't have a ton of questions, and it is a lot to take in, but I'm curious just for future discussions, whether there is anything that you've heard here tonight that is especially intriguing or that you're really keyed in on, just so we have a sense of kind of where your thoughts are.
Well, I'd like to learn a little bit more. I wrote down, I'll do my research as well, but about the 2025 Maryland Housing Expansion and Affordability Act. It sounds like that's going to impact, there's going to require some, Section 155, 156
Well,
changes.
that is what
possibly
we've been reviewing, actually.
Right.
All the text amendments that you all looked at a couple meetings ago, talking about the qualified projects, if
Right.
that rings a bell for you. This is the legislation that was responding to.
Okay.
Yeah.
Here's one question I might have. Is that the wants and needs of citizens in the southern part of the county might be entirely different than the wants and needs and visions of the people in the northern part of the county. And you did highlight some of those things up here where we talked about the demographic map. And that's maybe where the municipalities might come into play.
Exactly.
Because, we'll take Tawnytown, that's a growing community. They've got some really good business up there. But their wants, needs, and visions of the future might be entirely different than that group of people that's down. And we see that here when
Absolutely.
there are projects come into us.
Yep.
And what some of the concerns of the people
Yeah, you're not
are
wrong.
on these different projects. So I think that's an important thing to kind of think about too when we consider this.
Well, and it's an interesting thing. I'm aware of, not in this jurisdiction, not in our jurisdiction, I'm aware of one church that's land rich, but they're having trouble in the offering plate, and they're considering doing a housing project on their excess land, so that they can stabilize revenues for the church. Now that sounds like, well, why are you bringing this up? We were talking about, nonprofit, and all of a sudden I'm seeing, that in our code, and I'm hearing about this in another jurisdiction, a neighboring jurisdiction, and I'm like, okay, that's not far-fetched. We could see that happen. And so, but when we talk about affordable housing, and Tom, we were talking about it, I think a month ago, or at least somebody, so I said, somebody said, how do we do this without supply being in there? And what are we as a county going to do to encourage supply, because, you know, there's an equilibrium there between supply and demand. And so one of the ways to bring down, to make things more affordable is to increase the supply. So how do we do that correctly? Right? How do we do it without, you know, the unintended consequences of whatever plan we come up with? So, yeah, it's, anyway. And so if you've got creative ideas of what other municipalities like, or other jurisdictions like ours are doing to improve supply in the right areas, I mean, you know, how do we do this strategically? And I don't mean to be, you know, targeted. How do we make sure that we're doing what needs to be done so that we have both the vertical types of housing that we need and also the horizontal, you know, in terms of location, where it needs to be. So it's both. It's not one either or, it's both and.
When we talk about this, what comes to my mind is a very nice development that is along off of 140 near Sandy Mountain. It's fairly new, but the one thing that always grabs me is when that development started, I remember the big sign out there, and it said, "From the 300s."
Right.
About a year later, I drive by there and it says from the 400s. I drove by there the other day and it says it's from the 850s.
It's the Ryan Homes.
Yeah, and the homes look all the same to me, but in that short period of time that development started and where we are now, I'm saying, where's this gonna end? And I look at what's out there, and I said, when's that sign gonna say from the millions? And that kind of chills me a little bit when we talk about what you're keying on, which is extremely important.
Yeah.
But it just, that's like the sign in my head that I keep thinking about, and how quickly that went from the 300s to the 850s now. Just, it's so, you know, how do we keep chasing our tails here to keep up? And it's hard. It's hard.
And how do new home buyers,
Yeah.
you know, first-time job folks, you know, on the lower end of the wage scale, because they're just entering the labor market, how do you afford, and you can't afford anything like that.
I think now the average income of a single or married couple to be able to afford the median home price in America is now like $120,000.
Yeah, it's 125 or something like that.
In
Yeah.
income, and
Well, there's something in the,
99% of people just getting started aren't
yeah,
making $120,000 a year.
there was something in the, I was reading
And that's just a
report the other day.
modest house.
There's always a lot of talk about people living paycheck to paycheck, and 60% of people live paycheck to paycheck. The definition of income for paycheck to paycheck now is up in the low to mid $100,000 range, and that's like crazy. But that's what it is.
And government can't solve all those
No,
problems.
No.
So, that's for another day.
We'll solve it.
So,
The Gordian's knot.
just a couple of things to kind of summarize what I've heard. There are a few things that we'll try to come back to you with in one form or fashion. One is to try to get a better definition of workforce apartments, which, as Jeremy mentioned, is defined somewhere. We just need to put our fingers on that definition. The other is to possibly look at slicing and dicing the survey responses a little bit by, I specifically heard age and income, so we understand a little bit how those responses might shake out when you sort them by age brackets or income brackets.
Is it possible, and I'm glad you brought it up, because it skipped my mind for a minute. Is there a way to break that down by area within the county? I don't know, with the survey?
That's
I did ask for that.
geography.
Yeah, I think we asked for zip codes. There are some that maybe quite a few actually zip codes that we didn't get very many responses within, so it might be hard to, but I have to look at that and see if we can do it and it be meaningful, but
I mean, even if it was, hopefully it's not too limited, but, you know, Mr. Robertson had a very good point. As we all know up here, you go to Carroll County, we're not one type throughout the whole county.
Very different.
Tawnytown is not Sykesville, it's not Westminster. They're all very, to your point, they're all very different. So, I mean, I think that would be kind of an interesting look because just mindset-wise, something that may be typical in, say, Sykesville may not be an issue in, say, Westminster or vice versa. So, just a thought.
sure, yeah, we'll look at that.
And then the last thing, would we be able to share your presentation with everybody so they have a
Sure.
copy of it? Okay. Did I miss anything? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Any public comment? We have some public here. All right. Any general public comment about this evening's meeting? Probably not. Quiet group. Okay, so our next meeting is Tuesday, the 19th, daytime meeting at 9 a.m. And then the next evening meeting is Wednesday, December 4th at 6 p.m. here. And our next agenda item is adjournment. Can I get a motion?
I will not be here on the 19th,
You will not be here, okay.
so it'll be a shorter meeting, I'm sure.
We love your comments, Pete.
Yeah, y'all are great to put up with me. Thanks.
Good questions.
We're required to talk to these three that are out here.
Yeah,
then
yeah,
make-
you need to chase these guys down and say, where are you?
I like your comments, because that's a lot of the things I'm thinking. I'm like, I don't have to say nothing.
He's shy. Steve's shy.
Thanks,
Steve's-
Pressure's on.
Yeah.
Peter kind of said it all.
Next week you got me. You got her 2 weeks. All right,
fair
Okay.
enough.
move on.
So can I get a
I move we
motion?
adjourn?
Can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We're done.